They said a woman could feel a look before it reached her, the way skin knows the coming of rain. She felt it every morning before the sun lifted itself over the pines, an awareness that settled on her shoulders as she stepped from the quarters into the cool gray of dawn. The gaze followed her like a second shadow, not cast by light, but by want. It clung to her while she walked, while she worked, while she slept. And on this morning, as the bell tolled and the day bent toward labor, the gaze felt heavier than it ever had. Before we begin, let us know in the comments which country you're watching from and what time of day it is for you. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a chilling story. Her name was called differently by different mouths. Some softened it, some sharpened it, some did not speak it at all but let it hang unspoken between them. She had learned long ago that names could be borrowed and taken back, but looks were always owned by the one who cast them. The plantation lay quiet, save for the low stir of bodies rising and the distant creak of wood, yet she sensed the eyes opening before the people did. The fields waited, the big house waited, the long road waited, its dust unbroken. She breathed and stepped forward anyway. She carried water first. The buckets were cool at the handles, slick with last night's damp. As she crossed the yard, she felt the hush behind her, the way sound sometimes retreats when something unspoken enters a place. A man straightened where he stood, and then looked away too quickly, as though caught doing wrong. Another stared openly until his companion elbowed him, and then both pretended interest in the ground. The overseer stood near the barn, whip looped at his side, gaze calculating but not cruel in the way it often was. He watched her pass and then glanced at the big house, as if measuring a distance only he could see. She did not hurry. Hurrying invited notice of another kind. She moved with the steady grace she had learned was safest, neither defiant nor meek, neither inviting nor closed. The elders had taught her this rhythm when she first came, and she had listened because listening was how one stayed alive. But even the best taught rhythms could not stop a look from landing. Desire, she had learned, was louder than instruction. By mid-morning the sun burned off the mist. The fields shimmered, and the work settled into its brutal cadence. Hands bent and rose, bent and rose. Songs came and went like breath, beginning in one throat and ending in another. She worked among them, her fingers sure, her posture unremarkable, and still the gaze found her. It came from men she knew and men she did not, from visitors riding in with dust on their boots, from boys learning how to look at women by watching grown men do it badly. It came, too, from the women, some with pity, some with anger, some with a wary distance that hurt worse than cruelty. She did not blame them. On a plantation, attention was a currency no one asked for, and envy was the tax paid by those who did not receive it. She had been marked from the first day she arrived, though no one could have said exactly how. The elders said she walked like someone who had once known something better. Others said it was her eyes, too steady for their liking, too reflective, like water that had learned the shape of many shores. Once a woman had whispered that it was the way trouble seemed to slow when it reached her, as if the air thickened in her presence. The woman had crossed herself afterward, as though afraid of what she had said. At noon, a small thing happened. Small things were often the most dangerous. A crate slipped from a wagon near the storehouse, its contents spilling into the dirt. The overseer's shout cracked the air. A young man froze, eyes wide, hands lifted uselessly, knowing what followed mistakes. The whip uncoiled itself from the overseer's arm, a living thing hungry for flesh. She felt the gaze sharpen, turn, focus. Without thinking, without time to think, she stepped forward. "It was my fault," she said, her voice carrying in the sudden quiet. "I brushed the wheel." The lie surprised even her. She had been nowhere near the wagon. But the words had leapt from her as if summoned by something older than fear. The overseer looked at her, really looked, and something passed between them that had nothing to do with discipline. Calculation flickered. Recognition? No. Recognition implied knowledge, and she was not sure he had that. What he had was hesitation. He did not raise the whip. He stared, jaw working, then snapped the loop back onto his arm. "Clean it up," he said to no one in particular, and turned away. The young man sagged, breath rushing out of him like water from a cracked jar. Hands moved, work resumed, sound crept back into the world. She stood there a moment too long, heart pounding, knowing she had done something she did not yet understand. When she returned to her place, a woman beside her did not look up. Another reached out and squeezed her wrist, once, hard enough to leave a mark. Gratitude, yes, but also warning. "You cannot keep stepping into the path of a whip," the squeeze said. "The whip will learn your name." All afternoon the small thing echoed. The gaze grew bolder. It began to feel less like watching and more like weighing, as though some invisible scale had tipped. When the bell rang at last and the work ended, she did not linger. She walked back toward the quarters, shoulders tight, senses tuned, the sky bruised into evening, fireflies stitched light into the dark. She washed at the pump, the cold a relief. As she wrung out her dress, she noticed the way the air changed near the big house, the quiet that was not rest but attention held in reserve. Windows glowed. Footsteps sounded on the porch. A figure stood at the edge of the light and watched her. She could not make out the face, only the posture, the stillness that suggested waiting. She finished her task slowly, then turned her back and went inside. The quarters were a low murmur of talk and breath. Supper passed hand to hand. Someone laughed too loudly and then clapped a hand over their mouth. She sat with her bowl, appetite gone, listening. When the elders spoke, others leaned in. Tonight they spoke softly, and when her name came near their lips, they stopped. Silence, she had learned, was another way of speaking. Later, when darkness thickened and bodies settled, she lay awake. The gaze did not sleep. It moved along the walls, pressed itself into the cracks of the room. She closed her eyes and tried to remember the smell of a place that was not here. A riverbank, perhaps, or a kitchen warmed by something other than sun and labor. Memory came in pieces. It always did. She had learned not to chase it too hard. Chasing made it run. Footsteps approached. She stiffened. They passed. A door opened somewhere and closed again. Voices murmured, too low to catch. Then a knock, not on her door but on the frame of the building itself, a sound meant to announce presence without claiming it. Someone cleared their throat. The elder woman entered, moving carefully, a shawl pulled tight around her shoulders. Her hair was a map of years. She sat on the edge of the pallet and studied the girl's face in the dim light. "You did a thing today," she said. "I did," the girl replied. "Do you know what kind of thing?" The girl shook her head. The elder nodded, as though this confirmed something. "There are doors on this place that open only one way," she said. "Once you step through, you don't get to choose where you stand." "I couldn't let him—" The words tangled. "I know." The elder's voice softened. "And that is why I came." She reached into her shawl and drew out a small object wrapped in cloth. She placed it in the girl's palm and closed the girl's fingers over it. The weight surprised her. It was cool, smooth, shaped by hands. "Long gone." "Keep this close," the elder said. "Don't show it, don't speak of it. If anyone asks, you don't have it." "What is it?" the girl whispered. The elder hesitated. "A reminder," she said at last, "that the world was not always arranged this way." The elder stood to go, then paused. "They watch you because they want," she said. "They hesitate because they fear. Want and fear don't often live in the same body. When they do, it makes men careless." "Why me?" the girl asked. The elder looked away. "That," she said, "is not a question for tonight." When the elder left, the girl lay still, the object warming in her hand. She felt the gaze press closer, as if aware that something had changed. Outside, the night breathed. Somewhere, a horse stamped. Somewhere else, a door closed softly, too softly. She did not sleep. At dawn, the bell rang again. The world resumed its shape. She rose, tucked the object where no eye could find it, and stepped into the gray light. The gaze was already there, waiting, patient now, like a hunter who has learned the habits of its prey. She lifted her chin and walked. The morning took its time deciding what it would be. The sky hovered between night and day, the air cool enough to sting the lungs, the ground damp underfoot. She moved with the others, the bell's echo still ringing in her bones, the object from the elder's shawl pressed warm against her skin. Every step felt deliberate, as if the ground itself were listening. The gaze had changed. It was no longer scattered, no longer curious in the careless way it had been. It gathered now, focused, a narrowing of attention that made the air feel tighter. She sensed it without turning. Men pausing too long at nothing, a woman's whisper cut short, the overseer's glance sliding from her to the big house and back again. Even the horses seemed restless, tails flicking, hooves shifting as if the earth carried a message they could hear but not understand. Work began as it always did, and yet not at all as it always had. The young man whose punishment she had taken onto herself worked beside her, his hands shaking at first, then steadying. He did not speak. Gratitude sat heavy between them, a thing that needed no words. When he stumbled later, a smaller thing, a dropped tool, a miscount, he flinched and looked to her before he looked anywhere else. She did not know how to feel about that. Protection was a mantle she had not asked for, and it weighed more than it warmed. By mid-morning the whispers began. They traveled low, threaded through the work, carried by the movement of hands and bodies. Not the open kind of gossip that bloomed and died in a day, but the old kind, the kind that folded itself into memory and stayed. She caught pieces, her name softened, then sharpened. A question asked and not answered. A rumor shaped like a warning. She kept her eyes on the work, her breath even, the object still hidden. At the water break, the elder woman was not there. Instead, a cluster formed at the edge of the shade, women and men drawn together by something unspoken. She sat a little apart, not by choice but by habit. That was when the first whisper reached her clearly. "Do you know why he stopped?" a woman murmured. "No one stops," another replied. "Not like that." A third voice, older, steadier. "Things stop when something stands in their way." "And what is she?" the first asked, a brittle edge to the words. "A wall." Silence answered. Silence, and then the scrape of a foot as someone shifted position, uneasy. She drank and listened and felt the shape of the question change. It was not about the whip anymore. It was about her, about the way she seemed to bend the day without touching it, about the small mercies that clustered around her like birds, wary but present, about the men who watched and did not act, and the women who watched and did not know whether to step closer or back away. When the break ended, the whispers did not. They slip. Into the quarters at nightfall, settled into the corners, pressed against the walls. She felt them before she heard them, a hum under the ordinary sounds of evening. Supper passed. Laughter flared and dimmed. Then the elder woman returned, not to her but to the circle. The circle formed without invitation. Bodies leaned in. A child hushed. The elders sat, hands folded, eyes half-lidded, as if listening to something beneath the floor. She did not speak at once. She waited. Waiting, the girl knew, was one of the elders' powers. Waiting made room. "Ask," the elder said at last. The questions came carefully, wrapped in other words. "Why do some men look at her like that? Why did he stop? Why does trouble pass her door?" The elder lifted her eyes and met them one by one. "Because the past doesn't stay buried," she said. "Because promises outlive the people who make them. Because fear has a longer memory than hunger." The circle tightened. The girl's pulse beat loud in her ears. She did not move. "Is it a curse?" someone asked too quickly. The elder shook her head. "Curses make things smaller. This makes things larger." "Is she dangerous?" another voice whispered. The elder's gaze found the girl then, and for a heartbeat the room held its breath. "Danger," the elder said, "is not what you think it is." The girl felt heat rise to her face. She wanted to speak, to deny something she could not name, to pull the circle apart and let everyone return to the safety of not knowing. But the elder's earlier words pressed against her ribs. "There are doors that open only one way." The elder stood. "Enough," she said. "Whispers can keep you warm, but they can also burn the house down." People dispersed reluctantly, glancing back at the girl as if she might follow. She did not. She stayed where she was until the room thinned, until only a few remained. One of them, a woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue, lingered. "You didn't ask," the woman said. "Ask what?" The girl replied. "What it is you carry," the woman said. "People carry things. Sometimes they spill." The girl met her gaze. "Sometimes they don't," she said. The woman smiled without humor and left. Sleep came fitfully. When it did, it brought dreams that were not quite dreams, images that hovered and refused to settle. A hand closing over hers, the pressure firm and familiar. A voice speaking her name in a way she almost recognized. A doorway half open, light spilling across the threshold. She woke with the object clutched tight, breath shallow, the sense of having been watched even in her sleep. The next day the gaze hardened. Visitors arrived before noon, men in better boots. Their horses brushed to a shine that caught the sun. They dismounted near the big house and spoke in low tones. She felt their attention like a weight shift, subtle but unmistakable. As she worked, she noticed the overseer's posture, alert, deferential in a way that made her stomach knot. He took pains to keep his distance from her, to keep others from brushing too close. That, more than anything, drew notice. At the edge of the field, one of the visitors stopped and stared openly. His eyes tracked her movements, his mouth set in a thoughtful line. She did not look back. She counted her breaths instead, each one a small act of defiance. Later, as she carried a load toward the storehouse, she heard her name spoken clearly, not whispered. She froze. The overseer approached, hat in hand, his usual bark softened into something like courtesy. "You're wanted," he said, "by the house." Her chest tightened. The object pressed harder against her skin as if urging silence. She nodded once and followed. The path to the big house felt longer than it ever had. The yard lay open, exposed. Windows watched. The door yawned. She crossed the threshold and felt the world tilt, just a little. Inside the air was cooler, heavier with polish and old fabric. She stood where she was told, hands folded. Eyes down. Voices murmured beyond a screen. Then footsteps, measured and light. The mistress entered. She was smaller than the girl had imagined, her posture precise, her expression carefully arranged. She studied the girl with an intensity that bordered on hunger, then masked it with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "You caused a stir," the mistress said, her voice pleasant. "I worked," the girl replied. The mistress's smile twitched. "So you did." She circled, slow, assessing. "Do you know why you were called?" The girl shook her head. The mistress stopped in front of her. "Men notice you," she said. "They always have." "I don't invite it," the girl said quietly. "No," the mistress agreed. "You don't." Her gaze sharpened. "And yet it follows." The room seemed to lean in. The girl felt the object's presence like a secret heartbeat. She kept her face still. "There are arrangements," the mistress continued, as if discussing the weather. "Old arrangements, they require consideration." "For what?" the girl asked before she could stop herself. The mistress laughed softly. "For peace," she said. "For order." Her eyes flicked to the screen where the visitors' voices hummed. "For keeping things as they are." The girl understood then that this was not an interrogation but a test. She chose her words with care. "I keep to my work," she said. "I don't cause trouble." The mistress's smile returned, brittle. "Trouble," she said, "has a way of finding those it wants." Dismissal came like a mercy. The girl left with her heart racing, the gaze following her all the way back into the yard. By the time she reached the quarters, the whispers had transformed. They were no longer questions. They were stories, half-formed, dangerous, irresistible. That night the elder found her again. "You were called," the elder said, not asking. "Yes," the girl replied. "Did you speak?" "Yes." "Did you show what you carry?" "No." The elder nodded. "Good." "Why?" the girl asked, the word sharp with fear. "Why me?" The elder sat, hands braced on her knees. "Because you are a hinge," she said. "Because something turns where you stand." "I don't want that," the girl said. "No one ever does," the elder replied. She reached out and touched the girl's hand briefly. "Whispers will grow," she said. "They always do. Listen to them, but don't live in them. When the time comes, you'll know." "When?" the girl asked. The elder stood. "Sooner than you think," she said, and left. The girl lay awake, the quarters breathing around her, the whispers threading the dark. Outside, the big house glowed, its windows watchful. Inside her, something shifted. Fear, yes, but also a strange, unwelcome clarity. The gaze did not sleep. Tea pressed itself into the night like humidity, heavy and inescapable. The quarters breathed, soft snores, the rustle of straw, a cough swallowed before it could bloom. Outside, insects stitched the dark together with sound. Inside her chest, something counted time in short, sharp beats. She lay still, the object warm against her skin, and waited for the night to decide what it wanted from her. It came first as footsteps, not the rough, careless tread she knew by heart, but a lighter pattern, measured, practiced, the sound of someone who had learned long ago how not to be heard even while moving openly. She did not sit up. She did not turn her head. She watched the dark instead, felt the air change as a presence paused just beyond the thin wall. A voice murmured her name. It was spoken as if it belonged to someone else, as if it were an object that could be tested for weight. She closed her eyes. Silence followed, long enough to feel deliberate. Then the footsteps retreated, dissolving into the night. Only then did she breathe. At dawn, the bell rang too soon. The night had not finished with her, and yet the day demanded its shape. She rose with the others, folded her blanket, tucked the object where it could not betray. Why her? The sky was pale, undecided. She felt watched before she saw anyone watching. The work resumed. The whispers had thinned, but not disappeared. They moved differently now, less like smoke, more like threads pulled taut. People avoided her eyes. Others sought them, searching for something they could not name. The overseer kept his distance, a careful choreography that only drew more attention. Men from the big house hovered at the edges, pretending not to see. By mid-morning, the mistress appeared. She did not often come down into the fields. When she did, it was an event. Skirts crisp, gloves pale, posture immaculate. Today she walked as if the ground might argue with her steps. She spoke to no one at first, simply stood where she could be seen. The gaze shifted, rearranged itself around her. Then, with a small gesture, she beckoned the overseer. They spoke in low tones. The overseer nodded, then turned. His eyes found the girl and slid away, then returned, resigned. He approached, hat in hand. "You," he said, not unkindly. "Come." The path to the shade felt like a narrowing. The mistress waited, her face composed, her eyes sharp. Up close, the girl saw the faint tremor in the mistress's hands, the way her jaw set too firmly. "You," the mistress said, as if tasting the word. "Walk with me." They moved away from the others, skirts brushing grass, shoes sinking slightly into the damp. The girl kept her eyes forward. The mistress spoke as though continuing a conversation already begun. "You were noticed," she said. The girl said nothing. That happens, the mistress continued. It has always happened. She stopped walking and turned. But yesterday was different. I worked, the girl said, repeating the safe truth. Yes, the mistress said. And yet you stepped where others do not. She leaned in slightly. You made a man hesitate. The girl felt the object press against her skin, a reminder she could not show. I didn't mean to, she said. The mistress smiled thinly. Meaning is a luxury, she replied. Outcomes are what matter. They resumed walking. The mistress's voice softened, a practiced thing. There are stories, she said. People invent them when they don't understand what they see. Stories can be dangerous, the girl said before she could stop herself. The mistress glanced at her, startled, then amused. Yes, she said, they can. They reached a stand of trees where the light broke into patterns. The mistress stopped again. Tell me, she said, what do you think people see when they look at you? The girl hesitated. Honesty felt like a trap. I don't know, she said. The mistress studied her face, searching for cracks. They see possibility, she said. Men always do. Her voice tightened. But possibility frightens them as much as it excites. The girl understood then that this was not about her at all. It was about control. About the mistress's careful world, balanced on rules and rituals, threatened by something she could not fully name. Fear, the elder had said, had a long memory. You will keep to yourself, the mistress said lightly. You will not draw attention. I never have, the girl replied. The mistress's smile sharpened. Yesterday suggests otherwise. They turned back. As they walked, the mistress's hand brushed the girl's arm. An accident, perhaps, but the touch lingered a fraction too long. The girl felt the shiver it sent through the woman, the way fear and fascination tangled. Go, the mistress said, releasing her. We will speak again. The girl returned to the field, heart pounding. The gaze followed her, now layered. Men watching her, watching the mistress, watching them. The day stretched thin. At dusk a summons came again, this time not public. A boy delivered it, eyes wide, as if passing along something that might burn him. The girl followed the path to the big house, the air cooling, shadows lengthening. Inside, lamps glowed. The house felt diff. Rent at night. Less solid, more echoing. She was led not to the front rooms but to a smaller parlor, tucked away. The mistress waited there alone. She gestured for the girl to sit. The girl did not. The mistress watched her for a long moment, then sighed. You make this difficult, she said. I didn't ask to be here, the girl replied. No, the mistress said softly. You didn't. She folded her hands. There are things you don't know about this place, she said. Things that were decided before you arrived. The girl felt a cold clarity settle over her. What kind of things? She asked. Arrangements, the mistress said. Protections. She looked away. Mistakes. Silence pressed in. The girl waited. When my husband first saw you, the mistress continued, he said nothing. That frightened me. She laughed, brittle. He always says something. The girl said nothing. There are men, the mistress went on, who believe the world bends for them. They are wrong, of course. The world bends for leverage. She looked back at the girl, eyes intent. You are leverage. The word landed heavy. The girl felt the object's weight as if it had grown. You will not leave this place, the mistress said, not without consequence. I wasn't planning to, the girl replied. The mistress's gaze softened, almost regretful. Plans change. A sound came from beyond the door, voices, male, impatient. The mistress stood. You will return to your quarters, she said, and you will be careful. Careful of what? The girl asked. The mistress hesitated. Of being seen, she said. Dismissed again, the girl left. The house seemed to watch her go, its corridors narrowing behind her. Outside, the night closed in, warm and alive. She walked back alone. The quarters were tense. People looked up as she entered, then away. The elder woman sat near the wall, waiting. When the girl reached her, the elder did not ask questions. She simply nodded, as if a clock had ticked where she expected it to. They are afraid, the elder said quietly. Of what? The girl asked. Of losing what they think they own, the elder replied. She glanced around, and of remembering what they tried to forget. The girl swallowed. What did they forget? The elder's eyes flicked to the door, to the dark beyond. That power has a history, she said, and history doesn't stay quiet forever. Later, when sleep finally came, it brought no rest. She dreamed of hands reaching, of doors opening onto rooms she almost recognized. She woke before dawn, heart racing, certain someone stood over her. No one did. The gaze lingered anyway. Morning arrived with a thin light. The bell rang. The girl rose, tucked the object close, and stepped outside. The air felt charged, as if the day were holding its breath. Across the yard, the mistress watched from a window, her face pale, her eyes dark. When their gazes met, the mistress flinched, just a little, before turning away. The girl understood then that fear had shifted its weight, and fear, once moved, did not settle easily. She felt it before she understood it. A subtle change in how the day held itself together. The morning light lay thin across the yard, pale as watered milk, and the bell's echo seemed reluctant to fade. People moved, but not with the careless inevitability of habit. Their steps paused, their eyes lingered. The plantation, which had always known how to be loud in its cruelty, had grown quiet in a different way, quiet like a held breath. She stepped into the yard and sensed the lines of attention bend toward her and then away again, as if pulled by a hand no one could see. The overseer stood with his back to the quarters, speaking to a man from the big house. He nodded too often. When he noticed her, he stopped mid-sentence, cleared his throat, and gestured sharply toward the fields. Not a command, a redirection. She obeyed. Obedience was still the safest language. But as she walked, she felt something else beneath. The old caution, a tightening certainty that what had been spoken in the small parlor the night before had not stayed there. Words never did. Work began, and with it came a careful distance. Men who had once drifted too close now found reasons to stand elsewhere. A woman whose shoulder had brushed hers 100 times now kept a hand's width between them. Not fear of her, she realized, but fear of being seen near her. She was no longer merely noticed. She was marked. The mark was not visible. There was no brand, no bruise, no sign that could be pointed to. It lived in the way eyes slid away and returned, in the way conversations bent when she approached, in the way authority hesitated. She felt it settle into her bones like cold. By noon, the visitors from the day before returned. Their boots cut clean lines in the dirt. They spoke with the overseer, then with the mistress who stood on the porch, her posture rigid. The girl felt the pull of the big house like a tide. She kept her head down and worked. A shadow fell across her hands. She looked up to find one of the visitors standing too close. He smiled, a practiced curve that did not reach his eyes. "You're steady," he said, as if remarking on the weather. She did not answer. He leaned in, lowering his voice. "People say you stop trouble." Her fingers stilled. "People say many things," she replied. He studied her, gaze flicking briefly to the overseer, then back. "Some things," he said, "are worth understanding." Before she could respond, the overseer stepped in, voice clipped. "She's needed elsewhere." The visitor straightened, annoyance flashing across his face before smoothing into something else. "Of course," he said. "Another time." The overseer waited until the man had gone before speaking. "You'll work near the barn," he said. "Less traffic." She nodded and moved away, the barn's shadow swallowing her. Inside, the air smelled of hay and old wood. She leaned against a post for a moment, heart pounding. The object pressed against her skin, a steady presence. That afternoon, the elder came to her quietly. "You feel it," the elder said, not asking. "Yes," the girl replied. "They've begun to understand what they can't explain," the elder said. "That makes them reckless." "What is it they think they understand?" the girl asked. The elder hesitated. "That you are tied to something older than this place," she said. "Something they can't control the way they control everything else." The girl swallowed. "What am I tied to?" The elder's gaze softened. "A truth," she said. "One that doesn't show itself unless it must." The girl thought of the object, cool and smooth, hidden from sight. "Is it this?" she asked, pressing a hand lightly to her side. The elder nodded once. "That is part of it," she said. "Not the whole." "What is the whole?" the girl asked. The elder shook her head. "Not yet." Evening came early, the sky bruising into purples and grays. Supper passed in a hush. The whispers had thinned again, replaced by something heavier. The girl ate little, listening to the way silence gathered around her like a second skin. When darkness settled, she felt the pull of the big house again. This time the summons did not come by boy or overseer. It came as a presence, a certainty that she was expected. She waited until the quarters slept, then slipped out. The house loomed, windows lit like watchful eyes. She crossed the yard and paused at the door, steadying her breath. Inside, the lamps cast long shadows. The mistress waited, not in the parlor this time, but in a smaller room lined with shelves and locked drawers. Papers lay spread across a table, their edges neat. "You came," the mistress said, relief threading her voice despite herself. "You sent for me," the girl replied. The mistress gestured to a chair. "Sit." The girl did. The mistress paced once, then stopped. "You carry something," she said bluntly. The girl said nothing. "Don't insult." "Me," the mistress snapped and softened. "I know when a thing doesn't fit, you don't fit." The girl's hands tightened in her lap. "Neither do many things here," she said quietly. The mistress flinched. "Yes," she said, "and we manage them." She turned to the table and lifted a folded paper. "There was an agreement," she said, "made years ago before you." Her voice wavered. "It was meant to ensure discretion." "About what?" the girl asked. The mistress met her gaze. "About lineage." The word struck like a bell. The girl felt the room tilt. Memories stirred, faces half remembered, a voice calling her name with something like claim. You see, the mistress continued, there are lines that cannot be acknowledged without unraveling everything. She laughed softly, bitter. This place is built on lines. The girl understood then why desire had followed her like a curse, why fear had kept its distance. She touched the object, grounding herself. You think I am proof, she said. The mistress closed her eyes. I know you are. Silence stretched. Outside, a night bird cried. What do you want from me? The girl asked. The mistress opened her eyes. To keep quiet, she said. To stay where you are. To let us pretend. And if I don't? The girl asked. The mistress's jaw tightened. Then men will stop hesitating, she said. And I cannot promise what they will do. The threat hung between them, cold and clear. The girl stood. You already can't promise, she said. The mistress watched her go, fear naked on her face. The walk back felt unreal, the night thick with meaning. She reached the quarters and slipped inside. A visitor's party approached, alone this time. He stood just beyond arm's reach, careful not to cross an invisible line. You're being looked after, he said lightly. That doesn't happen by accident. She kept working. You could make it happen more, he continued. Comforts, protection, all it takes is understanding. She straightened and faced him. Understanding of what? He smiled, thin. Of your place. She met his gaze steady. My place is here, she said, working. His smile faltered. He glanced around, gauging who might be watching. Think on it, he said, and stepped back. By afternoon the air felt brittle. Clouds gathered and dispersed without committing. The plantation seemed to hold itself between one state and another. The girl felt it in her chest, a tension that made breathing an effort. The second bargain came wrapped in authority. She was summoned again to the big house, this time not by the mistress, but by her husband. The path felt familiar now, a corridor worn by fear and necessity. Inside, the man waited in a room lined with maps and ledgers. His posture relaxed in a way that suggested ownership. You've caused a stir, he said, echoing his wife's earlier words. I work, she replied. He laughed softly. You do, he said, and more. He leaned back, steepling his fingers. There are men who would pay well for what you represent. She felt the truth press against her ribs. I represent nothing, she said. He studied her, eyes narrowing. That's where you're wrong, he said. You represent continuity, silence. He smiled. Peace. And what do you offer? She asked. Safety, he said without hesitation. Yours, and those close to you. The room seemed to tilt. She thought of the young man spared the whip, of the women who watched from a distance, of the elder who had warned her about doors that opened only one way. And if I refuse? She asked. His smile cooled. Then men stop hesitating, he said, repeating his wife's threat with a different inflection. And accidents happen, she stood. Then we're done, she said. He watched her go, eyes calculating. The third bargain came in the dark that night as the quarter settled and sleep crept unevenly through the room. She felt a presence near her palate. A hand hovered, then withdrew. A whisper brushed her ear, her name spoken with familiarity that made her skin crawl. Listen, the voice murmured. You don't have to be hurt. She sat up, heart racing. The figure retreated, melting into shadow. She did not follow. She lay back down, the object clenched tight, and waited for dawn. The elder found her before the bell. They are testing, the elder said quietly. I know, the girl replied. They will press harder, the elder continued. They always do when silence resists. What do I do? The girl asked. The elder's eyes were steady. You decide what you're willing to pay, she said, and what you're willing to let others pay for you. The words followed the girl into the day like a tolling bell. Work began. The air thickened. By mid-morning the pressure became unmistakable. The overseer's patience snapped. A woman stumbled. The whip cracked, not on flesh but close enough to draw blood from fear alone. The girl felt the collective flinch ripple through the field. The overseer's eyes flicked to her, challenging. She did not move. The whip cracked again, closer this time. The woman cried out. The girl stepped forward. It was my fault, she said, her voice carrying. The overseer froze, rage and uncertainty colliding on his face. You'll stand back, he barked. She did not. For a moment the world held still. Then the overseer lowered the whip with a curse and turned away. The woman sagged, saved. The cost came immediately. The overseer's gaze burned into the girl's back for the rest of the day. Men muttered. Women whispered. The line between protection and peril blurred. That evening the mistress came to the court. Aris herself. Gasps rippled. She stood at the threshold, pale, composed, fear barely leashed. We need to talk, she said. The elder rose. Not here, she said firmly. The mistress hesitated, then nodded. They moved to the edge of the yard, lantern light trembling between them. The girl followed. "This cannot continue," the mistress said. "You're upsetting the balance." "The balance hurts people," the girl replied. The mistress's eyes flashed. "And chaos hurts everyone," she snapped. She lowered her voice. "There is a way to end this, a bargain." "I'm listening," the girl said. "You stay," the mistress said. "You keep quiet. In return, no one near you is punished. No one touches you without consent." Her voice broke. "I will protect you." The girl considered the offer, felt its weight. "And if someone else is hurt?" she asked. The mistress looked away. "That's not part of the bargain," she said. Silence stretched. The girl understood then that every bargain asked for blood, hers or someone else's. She thought of the object, of the truth it represented, of the door half open in her dreams. "I can't accept," she said. The mistress's face collapsed inward. "You don't understand what you're refusing," she whispered. "I do," the girl said. "I just won't pay that way." The mistress left without another word. Night fell heavy. The quarters buzzed with unease. The elder sat with the girl, their shoulders nearly touching. "They will escalate," the elder said. "I know," the girl replied. "Then you must be ready," the elder said. "For what?" the girl asked. "For the moment when silence costs more than speech," the elder said. Sleep came fitfully. Near dawn, the girl dreamed of fireflies thick as stars, their light pulsing in unison. She woke with the image burning behind her eyes. The next day, the final bargain arrived. It came not as an offer, but as a threat made flesh. A boy ran into the field, breathless, eyes wild. "They've taken him," he gasped. "Taken who?" the girl asked, already knowing. "The one you saved," a boy said. "They say it's because you interfere." The world narrowed. The girl felt the truth surge, hot and dangerous. She looked to the elder, who met her gaze and nodded once. This was the door. The girl stepped forward, the object heavy in her hand, the secret pressing to be seen. She did not know what would happen next. She only knew that the cage had tightened too far, and cages, when they break, do not do so quietly. The words rang through her as if spoken aloud, as if the night itself had chosen a voice. The boy's breath came in ragged pulls, his chest heaving, eyes darting toward the big house as though it might hear him thinking. Around them, work stuttered and stalled. Hands froze mid-motion, heads lifted. A ripple of fear ran outward like a thrown stone. The name of the taken man passed from mouth to mouth, each repetition sharpening it. She did not hesitate. "Where?" she asked. The boy pointed, arm trembling, toward the far sheds near the tree line, the ones used when someone wanted sound swallowed by distance. The overseer's territory, the place where the ground remembered too much. The elder was already moving, her stride short and quick. "Not alone," she said, not a question. Others rose as if pulled by a single thread. 2 women, a man with shoulders like a wall, a girl barely old enough to understand what fear asked of her. They followed without being told, eyes set, mouths tight. The sun slipped lower, dragging the light with it. By the time they reached the edge of the trees, the world had taken on that waiting hush, the moment before night settles fully, when sound seems to hover instead of land. The sheds loomed ahead, dark shapes against darker leaves. Somewhere inside, a voice cried out and cut short. Her heart hammered. The object burned against her skin, a steady heat that felt like a warning and a promise tangled together. She reached for it and felt the familiar smoothness, grounding herself. The truth pressed up behind her eyes, not yet spilling, but close enough to blur the edges of the world. They approached quietly. The man with the wall shoulders crept to one side, listening. Another peered through a gap in the boards and flinched back, jaw clenched. 2, he mouthed. "And him." The elder closed her eyes, briefly, as if counting. When she opened them, they were clear. "Now," she said. They did not rush. Rushing would draw the wrong kind of attention. They moved like shadows slipping between shadows, the way people do when they have learned that speed is not the same as haste. The elder stepped into the doorway first, her voice sharp as flint. "Enough!" The overseer turned, whip half raised, surprise flashing into fury. "Get out!" he snarled. The elder did not move. "You will stop," she said. The second man laughed, a short, ugly sound. "Old woman," he said, stepping forward. The girl felt the moment tip. She stepped into the doorway beside the elder, the object in her hand visible now for the first time. The firelight caught its surface, sending a pale gleam across the walls. The men froze, not because they recognized it, but because something in the room shifted. The air thickened, pressed in. "What is that?" the overseer demanded. She did not answer. She held it steady, felt the weight of the room settle onto her shoulders. The man tied to the post sagged, blood on his lip, eyes flicking between her face and the object as if unsure which to believe. The elder spoke, voice low and carrying. "You know what it means," she said. The overseer swallowed. His gaze darted to the doorway, to the trees beyond, to the darkening sky. "You don't understand," he began. "I understand enough," the girl said, surprising herself with the steadiness of her voice. "You will let him go." Silence stretched brittle. Then from outside a sound drifted in, soft at first, then multiplying. Tiny clicks of light, blinking on and off, stitching the dusk with gold. Fireflies rose from the grass in a living cloud, their glow pulsing as if answering a signal no one had sent. The second man backed away, crossing himself. "This is wrong," he whispered. The overseer hesitated, the whip trembling. In that hesitation, the elder stepped forward and cut the ropes with a knife that seemed to appear from nowhere. The man slumped, caught by the wall shoulders, who hauled him back, careful and quick. "Go," the girl said, not raising her voice. The overseer's face twisted. For a moment it looked like he might strike anyway. Then the fireflies surged, light rippling across the walls, and something like fear, pure and unmasked, flooded his eyes. He lowered the whip and stepped aside. They did not linger. The group melted back into the trees, carrying the injured man between them. The sheds swallowed their absence, the night closing ranks. Behind them, voices rose. Shouts, curses, a call for help that came too late. They ran until their lungs burned, until the fireflies thinned and the quarters loomed ahead, dark and waiting. They slipped inside, hearts pounding, hands shaking. The elder pressed cloth to the man's wounds, murmuring to him, while others stood watch. Outside, the plantation erupted. Lanterns flared, boots pounded. Voices cut the night into pieces. The big house glowed like a beacon, windows blazing, doors slamming. Orders were shouted, contradicted, shouted again. Dogs barked, straining against their chains. The girl stood apart, the object still in her hand, its surface warm as skin. The truth pressed harder now, no longer content to remain hidden. She felt it in the way people looked at her, not with curiosity or envy, but with a dawning understanding that something irreversible had begun. "They'll come," someone whispered. "Yes," the elder replied, "they will." The first knock came hard, rattling the frame. "Open," a voice commanded. No one moved. The knock came again, louder. "In." The elder stepped forward. "We are tending the injured," she called. "You will wait." A murmur ran through the room. Fear, admiration, disbelief braided together. The girl felt the weight of their eyes and understood that this night had made her a hinge in truth, not just in whisper. The door burst open. The mistress stood there, pale and furious, flanked by men with lanterns. Her gaze snapped to the girl, then to the injured man, then back. Her mouth opened, words crowding for release. "Enough," the girl said. The word landed like a stone dropped into still water. Ripples spread. The mistress stared. "You don't have the right." "I have the truth," the girl said quietly. The lantern light flickered. Fireflies drifted in through the open door, their glow softening the hard lines of the room. The men shifted, uneasy. The mistress's eyes found the object in the girl's hand. Recognition flashed, sharp and unmistakable. Her breath caught. "Close the door," the mistress said hoarsely. No one moved. The girl stepped forward. "He lives," she said, nodding to the injured man. "That is not negotiable." The mistress's composure cracked. "You think you can dictate?" "I think," the girl said, "that the world is already changing." Silence pressed in, heavy and alive. Outside, the fireflies pulsed, their light a slow heartbeat. Inside, fear and desire tangled, no longer distinguishable. The mistress looked at the men, then back at the girl. "If you speak," she whispered, "everything falls." "Some things should," the girl replied. The mistress closed her eyes. When she opened them, something like defeat settled into her posture. "Leave us," she told the men. They hesitated, then obeyed, lanterns bobbing as they retreated. The door closed. The room exhaled. The mistress sank onto a bench, hands shaking. "You don't know what you've done," she said. "I know what I'm doing," the girl replied, "and I know what you're afraid of." The mistress laughed, a thin, broken sound. "You think fear is mine alone?" she asked. "No," the girl said, "but tonight it's loudest, in you." They stood there, the past pressing close, the future waiting just beyond the walls. Outside, the fireflies drifted upward, thinning as the night deepened. When the mistress finally spoke again, her voice was low. "There will be consequences," she said. "Yes," the girl agreed, "there already are." The injured man groaned softly. The elder adjusted the cloth, murmuring reassurance. The girl felt the truth settle into her hands, no longer burning, but steady. The night stretched on, restless. By dawn, nothing would be the same. And the fireflies, having stitched their light into the dark, faded one by one, leaving behind a world that could no longer pretend it had not seen. Light seeped into the quarters as if uncertain it would be welcomed. It crept along the floorboards, found the edges of blankets, climbed the walls. No bell rang. No voice called the day into order. The plantation held itself in a fragile pause, as though afraid that any sound might shatter what little balance remained. The injured man slept, his breathing shallow but steady. The elder sat beside him, her hands stained, her eyes bright with exhaustion and resolve. The girl stood near the door, the object wrapped once more and hidden, though she could feel its presence as surely as she felt her pulse. Outside, boots moved cautiously. Whispers skittered like startled birds. When the door opened again, it did so without force. The mistress stepped inside alone. She looked older in the early light, as if the night had taken something from her and refused to return it. Her dress was hastily fastened. Her hair, usually precise, had loosened. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it, as though the room itself were the only thing keeping her upright. "It's begun," she said, not looking at anyone in particular. The elder did not rise. "Yes," she replied, "it has." "The miss?" Tress's gaze found the sleeping man, lingered, then snapped to the girl. "You should not still be here," she said. "Neither should he," the girl replied. The mistress flinched. She took a step forward, then stopped as if remembering a boundary. "Men are asking questions," she said. "Questions I cannot answer without—" She broke off, pressing her lips together, "without unraveling everything." "Then don't answer them," the elder said calmly. "Let the past speak for itself." The mistress laughed softly, a sound edged with panic. "You think the past speaks kindly?" she asked. "It screams. Only when it's been silenced too long," the elder replied. The mistress sank onto a bench, head in her hands. For a moment the room held only the sound of breathing. Then she looked up, eyes sharp again, fear reshaped into something like calculation. "They know," she said. "Not all of it, but enough." She met the girl's gaze. "They see the resemblance. They remember the rumors. They are counting years." The girl felt a chill slide down her spine. "Let them count," she said. "You don't understand," the mistress snapped. "If they say it aloud, if it becomes more than whisper, there will be blood." "There already has been," the girl said, gesturing to the sleeping man. Silence fell. The mistress's shoulders sagged. "I tried to keep it contained," she whispered. "I told myself that silence was mercy." The elder rose then, slow but unyielding. "Silence was convenience," she said. "Mercy requires courage." Outside, voices rose. Not angry shouts, but something more dangerous, argument. The sound of people disagreeing openly. The mistress stiffened. "It's starting," she said. The door opened again, this time to reveal a small crowd, men and women from the quarters, faces drawn, eyes bright. No overseer stood among them. That absence spoke louder than any accusation. One of the men stepped forward, hat in hand. "We need to know," he said. "Is it true?" The mistress's gaze flicked to the girl, then away. The girl felt the weight of the moment settle on her chest, heavy and inevitable. The truth pressed up, no longer content to be held. "Yes," the girl said. The word rippled through the room, through the doorway, out into the yard. A murmur rose, then quieted. The man swallowed. "Then she's—" The elder cut him off. "She is what she has always been," she said. "A person." "But the blood," someone whispered. The girl stepped forward. "The blood you're thinking of doesn't belong to anyone here," she said. "It was taken." The mistress closed her eyes. When she opened them, tears tracked down her cheeks unchecked. "It was a sin," she said, "one of many. We buried it and built on top of it and told ourselves it would stay buried." "Nothing does," the elder said. Outside, the plantation shifted. People gathered openly now, no longer pretending to work. At the center of it all. "What is this?" he demanded. The elder stepped forward. "Justice catching its breath," she said. The overseer sneered. "You think you can—" He stopped when the girl turned fully toward him. For a moment he seemed to shrink, as if seeing something he had hoped never to see clearly. His gaze flicked to the mistress, then back to the girl. "This is above you," he said, voice uncertain. "No," the girl replied. "It's been beneath me all my life." Laughter rippled through the crowd, not mocking but relieved, the sound of something breaking open. The overseer's face hardened. "I'll have order," he said. "You've had it," the elder replied, "at a cost." The overseer lunged forward, hand raised. Before he could reach her, hands caught him, men and women alike, holding him back. The crowd surged, not violent but firm. The overseer struggled, then stilled, realization dawning that the ground had shifted beneath his feet. The mistress watched, stunned. "This is madness," she whispered. "This is memory," the elder said. Finally speaking, by midday the plantation no longer resembled itself. Work had ceased entirely. Groups gathered beneath trees, on porches, in the open yard. Stories surfaced, half remembered, long suppressed. Names were spoken carefully, reverently. The girl listened, her heart aching, understanding that her truth had unlocked others. She felt it when the past spoke through them, not as accusation alone, but as testimony. The mistress retreated to the big house, her steps unsteady. She paused at the door and looked back once, her gaze meeting the girl's. Fear still lived there, but something else had joined it, recognition. "You can't put this back," the mistress said. "No," the girl agreed. "You can only decide what you do next." The mistress nodded once, then disappeared inside. As the sun climbed, men arrived from neighboring land, drawn by rumor, by the sight of gathered bodies where there should have been bent backs. Questions multiplied. Addy hands adjusting blankets, checking the injured man's fever, murmuring to those who hovered too close with fear in their eyes. The man had drifted back into sleep, his breath stronger now, but every so often he twitched as if his body remembered what his mind tried to forget. The girl watched him and felt a sharp, bitter clarity. Saving someone did not erase what had been done. It only refused to let the doing be the last word. A soft scrape sounded at the doorway. She turned. A young woman stood there, one she'd seen often but never spoken to much, quiet, always keeping her gaze low. Tonight her eyes were lifted, and in them was something like resolve that hadn't yet learned how to sit comfortably in a human face. "They're saying you should go," the young woman whispered. "Go where?" the girl asked. The young woman swallowed. "Away," she said. Before the house decides." The girl looked past her to the yard where figures moved near the tree line, silhouettes passing lantern light. "The house has been deciding," she said softly. "It's just been deciding quietly." The young woman's hands clenched. "Quiet kept some people alive," she said. "And quiet kept some people trapped," the girl replied. The young woman's eyes flickered, caught between fear and recognition. She nodded once and stepped aside, letting the girl see the group gathering near the elder. Men and women stood in a half circle, their faces lit from below by lantern glow. The elder stood at the center, her posture straight despite the years, as if the night itself had poured strength into her bones. When the girl approached, the voices softened, then fell silent. "The road won't wait," someone murmured. "And neither will they," another voice answered. The elder lifted a hand. "We speak one at a time," she said. A man stepped forward, one with weathered hands and eyes too old for his age. "Word's already moving," he said. "Folks from the neighboring land heard, they'll tell more. By morning, men with authority might come, or men who claim it." The girl felt the shape of that possibility settle into her chest. Men with authority, papers, questions, punishment dressed as law. A woman with a baby at her hip spoke next. "If they come, they'll want someone to blame," she said. "They'll choose her." She glanced at the girl, not cruelly, but as if stating a fact the way one states rain. The girl did not flinch. "I know," she said. A low murmur moved through the group. The elder's gaze stayed on the girl. "And what do you choose?" the elder asked. The question was not dramatic, it was practical. It was the kind of question life asked when it stopped pretending it had endless time. The girl looked at the lanterns, at the faces, at the sleeping injured man behind her. The object pressed warm against her skin. She thought of the mistress's face. Fear cracked open into something human, then shut again. She thought of the master's smile cooling into threat. She thought of the overseer's trembling whip. She thought of the fireflies, their light pulsing like a heartbeat the earth itself remembered. "I choose to not be used," she said quietly. "Not as leverage, not as silence, not as a bargain." A man exhaled as if he had been holding breath for years. "Then you'll go," he said. The girl nodded. "Yes," she said, "but not alone, not without saying what must be said first." The elder's expression did not change, and yet something in the set of her shoulders eased as if a long-held tension had finally found direction. "Then we move carefully," she said. "We don't run like frightened animals. We walk like people who know where they're going." They began to prepare, quietly, efficiently. Someone fetched cloth and water. Someone wrapped food in scraps of fabric. Someone brought an old shawl for the girl, dark enough to swallow light. The young woman from the doorway returned with a small bundle and pressed it into the girl's hands without speaking. "What is this?" the girl asked. "Shoes," the young woman whispered, cheeks flushing as if embarrassed by generosity. They're not good, but they're better than nothing." The girl's throat tightened. She nodded once, the thanks too heavy for words. Outside, the big house remained dark. Its windows did not glow. Its porch did not creak. That silence felt more dangerous than shouting. The girl could not tell if it meant the mistress had chosen surrender or strategy, grief or calculation. Perhaps it meant all of them at once. The elder motioned to her. "Come," she said. "Now." They moved toward the edge of the yard where the trees thickened. Lanterns were dimmed. Voices became gestures. The group that would leave was small. Too many bodies drew attention. Too few bodies invited attack. The injured man could not be moved. The elder had decided it. 2 strong men would stay to guard him. The elder herself would go, because the elder did not let the young walk into darkness without someone who had walked it before. As they approached the trees, the girl glanced back. The quarters were alive with watching eyes. Faces hovered at doorways. Some people lifted a hand in farewell. Some did not, afraid that even a gesture might be remembered and punished. The girl understood both. She lifted her hand once, slow and steady, and lowered it again. A soft sound rose from the grass. Fireflies, not as thick as the night before, but present. Tiny points of living light blinking on and off as if the earth was breathing. The girl's heart clenched, not with fear this time, but with something she could not name. A strange tenderness, perhaps. or a warning that didn't feel like threat but like guidance. They entered the trees. The world narrowed to shadow and leaf, to the smell of damp earth and pine sap. Every snap of twig sounded too loud. Every rustle felt like pursuit. The elder moved ahead, sure-footed despite the dark, her hand occasionally lifting to signal pause. Listen. Move. Behind them, the plantation held its breath. Ahead, the woods opened into a path known only to those who had needed to know it. The elder led them along it, not rushing, not stopping. The girl's mind ran faster than her feet. Thoughts collided, the master's threat, the mistress's fear, the gossip traveling like fire through dry grass. Men with papers, men with whips, men who smiled and called it order. After some time, minutes, hours, it was hard to tell. The elder stopped beneath a stand of trees where the canopy thickened. She raised a hand. Everyone froze, voices drifted on the wind. Men. Close. A lantern glow bobbed between trunks. The girl's stomach dropped. The elder crouched, motioning them down. They sank into the brush, bodies pressed close to earth. The light grew brighter. Footsteps approached. Spread out, a voice commanded. It was the overseer. His tone was strained, as if he knew the night no longer obeyed him, but he tried to make it anyway. They can't have gone far. Another voice, one of the visitors, answered with impatience. The master wants her back, he said, quietly, if possible. If possible, the overseer repeated, and the words carried a bitterness that made the girl's skin prickle. The overseer had never cared about quiet until quiet served someone above him. The lantern swung, washing the trees with pale light. For a moment, it hovered close enough that the girl saw the overseer's boots, the dirt on them, the restless shift of weight from heel to toe. She held her breath so hard it hurt. The elder's hand closed around the girl's wrist, steady as iron. The grip did not say, "Don't move." It said, "Stay alive." The men moved past, their voices fading. The light diminished, swallowed by distance and leaves. Only when it was gone did the girl exhale, lungs burning. The elder waited longer still, listening to the woods for echoes. When she was satisfied, she rose. "They'll keep looking," the elder whispered. "Yes," the girl replied. "They'll look harder when the sun comes," the elder said. The girl nodded, jaw tight. "Then we won't be here when it does." They moved again, deeper. The path became uneven, roots twisting like knuckles beneath their feet. The girl's borrowed shoes rubbed blisters into her heels, but she did not slow. Pain was simple. Fear was not. At last they reached a place where the trees thinned, and a narrow creek cut through the earth like a dark ribbon. The elder stopped at its edge. "This is the line," the elder said softly. "A line?" the girl asked, voice barely more than breath. "A boundary," the elder replied. "Not one drawn by papers, but one drawn by practice. They don't like crossing water at night. Superstition makes cowards of men who pretend they fear nothing." The fireflies hovered above the creek, their light trembling on the surface. The girl stared at them and felt the night's earlier dreams stir, the pulsing, the unison, the sense of something ancient paying attention. She stepped into the water. Cold bit her ankles, then calves. The creek stones were slick. She moved carefully, arms out for balance. The elder followed, then the others. When they reached the far bank, the elder climbed first and offered a hand, pulling the girl up with surprising strength. They paused only a moment, listening. No voices followed. No lantern light appeared. The woods held steady, as if satisfied. The girl's breath came out in a shaky laugh she didn't mean to make. It sounded wrong in the dark, too loud. She pressed a hand over her mouth, then lowered it. The elder glanced at her, and for the first time that night the elder's eyes softened. "Not yet," the elder murmured, not unkindly. "Not until you can laugh in daylight." The girl swallowed. "Will that happen?" she asked. The elder's gaze drifted to the black line of trees, to the dark sky beyond. "I don't know," she said honestly. "But the fact that you can still ask means you haven't been broken into silence. That matters." They walked on until the east began to pale. Dawn did not arrive suddenly. It seeped in, slow and reluctant, softening the edges of the world. The trees took on color. The creek's surface shifted from black to gray to silver. Birds began to call, tentative at first, then bolder, as if testing whether it was safe to sing. The girl's legs ached, her feet burned, her throat was dry. And yet her mind felt strangely clear, as if the night's fear had been wrung out of it, leaving something steadier behind. They stopped beneath a large oak whose branches spread wide like sheltering arms. The elder sat on a root and gestured for the girl to sit beside her. "Now," the elder said. The girl frowned. "Now what?" "Now you decide what you carry forward," the elder replied. "Not the object, not the story people want to tell, you." The girl stared at her hands. They were dirty, scraped, trembling slightly. She reached for the object beneath her shawl and felt its familiar smoothness, then let it go. "I don't know who I am without it," she admitted. The elder nodded slowly. "That's the work," she said, "to become more than the thing others claim you are." The girl's eyes stung. She blinked hard, refusing tears. Tears felt like surrender. The elder's hand rested on her shoulder, light but grounding. "Listen," the elder said, "the truth you carry, what it did last night, it opened mouths. It broke a silence that served them." Her gaze sharpened. "But silence can serve us too when we choose it." The girl looked up. "Choose it?" she repeated. "Yes," the elder said. "There is a difference between being forced quiet and being wisely quiet." She leaned closer. "Your next steps aren't about proving anything to them. They're about surviving long enough to decide your own life." The girl breathed, slow. The words settled. Survive long enough to decide your own life. Behind them, the woods lay still, holding the plantation in its distance. The girl could almost see it in her mind. The big house dark at dawn, the yard full of people who could no longer pretend, the overseer searching, the mistress watching her world tilt. She did not know what would happen there next. She only knew she had refused to let that place be the only world that defined her. A bird called overhead, sharp and clear. The sun's first true light slid through the branches and touched the girl's face. She closed her eyes and felt it. Not safety, not yet, but possibility. She opened her eyes and looked at the elder. "What about them?" she asked, meaning the people left behind. The elder's gaze went distant. "The truth has already reached them," she said. "And truth, once spoken, does not return to the throat." She held the girl's eyes. "Your leaving does not abandon them. It changes the shape of what they believe is possible." The girl swallowed the ache rising in her chest. "And the mistress?" she asked, surprised by the question. The elder's mouth tightened. "Fear makes people do many things," she said. "Sometimes it makes them crueler. Sometimes it makes them confess." She paused. "But whatever she becomes next is her choice, not yours." The girl nodded, understanding the boundary the elder was drawing. Not all burdens were hers to carry. The elder stood slowly, joints creaking, then offered a hand. The girl took it and rose. Her legs wobbled, then steadied. The group gathered their small bundles, adjusted shawls, checked the path ahead. Before they moved, the elder touched the girl's side gently where the object rested. "Keep it," the elder said, "not because it will save, because it will remind you that someone once tried to save a piece of you." The girl's throat tightened. Again. She nodded. They started walking, the dawn growing brighter with each step. Behind them, the woods swallowed the last of night. Ahead, the land opened into unfamiliar shapes, fields not owned by the same eyes, roads not yet lined with the same rules. Danger would still exist. The world beyond the plantation was not a promise of kindness, but it was a world where her steps could lead somewhere other than back to the same cage. As they walked, the girl felt the mark she carried begin to change. It did not disappear. It did not become harmless. But it shifted from something that had been placed upon her into something she carried on purpose. A reminder, a warning, a truth she could choose when and how to speak. She looked back once, only once. The trees stood between her and the plantation now, their trunks solid, their leaves trembling in the morning breeze. Somewhere beyond them, a bell would ring again, and someone would pretend the world was still arranged the same way. But the girl knew better. She turned forward, breath steady, feet moving. The silence behind her was no longer a prison, it was distance, and in the space that distance made, her own voice, still quiet, still careful, began to sound like something that belonged to her.